welcome to the channel. My name's Great Tommy. This is Straight Six Fan, where I like to focus on budget-minded, relatable, creative builds. A little something that I like to call offbeat hot rodding. And today it is Friday, March, what is it, the 6th, I believe. And we are actually going on a road trip. I have taken the day off of work to go visit McPherson College. McPherson College in McPherson, Kansas. Has an automotive restoration program. So it is kind of associate's degree level program, and I have elected to go on a campus visit at age 34. So it'll be interesting. I'm probably going to be twice the age of some of these 17-year-olds on the visit. So didn't really think about it that way. But no, it's kind of doing some soul searching right now in my life. Of course, my day job being architecture. I've had some stressful January and February, super stressful. Do I know that I'm gonna actually go back to school? Probably not. Probably not ever gonna do that as a full-time student, especially given the distance between me and McPherson. But they do have some summer programs. I thought at the very least it would be a good escape from work to go check out their program and what they're all about. So that's what this video is all about. So we've successfully made it here to McPherson. I'm gonna go stop by, pick up some lunch real fast, and then make our way to campus.
The program was started by a local entrepreneur here in McPherson. His name was Gaines Smokey Ballou. Made a significant amount of money. He figured out how to store natural gas in underground caverns. Since he figured that out, he had a pretty significant collection of old cars in the late 70s, and had a mechanic, a guy who'd worked for him for years and years in different capacities, who was in his late 70s himself. Well, he thought, now I can't find anybody to work on my cars, so we got to figure this out. As the story goes, I don't know how much truth there is to it, but it's kind of a legend around here. The president walked into his office one day, and this guy in his cowboy hat and his boots had his boots up on the president's desk and said, I got an idea, and we're going to start teaching students how to work with their hands again. And that's kind of how the idea spawned and started. And the idea for the program kind of went from there. It started out as a 2-year associates program, and that 2-year associates program progressed into the mid-90s. Okay, and in the mid-90s, the population of the program was kind of dwindling. The college was considering shutting the program down. One of the guys who was here worked in advancement, got a call one day from a guy named Jay Leno, and supposedly Jay got hung up on a couple times that day because nobody believed he was calling McPherson College. The way I understand the story, he was receiving an award from McGuire's Car Crazy Collector Award. They still give to this day, and it came with a charitable donation that was to go to somewhere. He had one of his mechanics said, you should give it to McPherson College. It's this college in Kansas that does restoration. Summertime rolls around, they kind of stop their conversations, and he called back again and said, hey, we're having a dinner for this award, and if you can get out here and bring a student, I'll buy you guys both a ticket, and I'll introduce you to some people. So he rented a car and headed west, picked up a student on the way to, I believe it was Los Angeles. They went to this dinner, they had to stop and buy him a suit, went to this dinner, and Jay introduced him to people in the industry that we didn't know about or didn't know, and they came back with a stack of business cards. And a lot of ideas came from that trip. We're the only place in the country where you can get a bachelor's degree in automotive restoration technology. We focus about the end of the muscle car era, so mid-70s-ish, back to as early as you can go. So I think that the latest car you'll see today is a late 60s K-Code Fastback Mustang, and I think the earliest car you'll see is an 1888 Benz Runabout. The program itself, right now, we house about 150 students, something like that, between 140 and 150 normally. We accept about 40 total students a year, so we'll take about 30 freshmen, give or take a couple, depending on our capacity after graduation and whatnot. And we accept about 8 to 10 transfer students usually in a year. Our graduates are doing not just restoration work, they're doing rod custom work, they're doing resto mod work, they're doing fabrication, anything you can think of. We do bumper to bumper basically on the car. So one of our guys, Brian, our project director, he always says that we don't dip chrome and we don't bend glass, but we can do about everything else here. And that's really true. And so the other thing he'll say is, we'll teach you the rules and you can break them however you want. So the skills that you'll learn, whether it be sheet metal, whether it be paint, whether it be chassis and drivetrain work, they will translate to all different facets of the industry. It doesn't matter if you want to work on American muscle cars or obscure European cars. The skills that you'll learn will translate into the industry. So the hard deadline was, we want this car done, restored, in order to try to compete to win at Pebble Beach in 2023 and win some type of award while we're there, right? We employ a team of students who are working on that car. Those students are getting internship credit to work on that car. They get paid a real wage to work on that car. They have to apply, they have to interview, and they can be fired. But we found a car. It's a 53 Mercedes-Benz 300S Cabriolet. So the first one, everybody thinks we only have one, right? So everybody thinks you come here, you all study the exact same thing, is restoration technology, okay? So that's, you have to complete your gen ed courses, you have to complete your elective courses, and then your hands-on restoration courses, okay? The only thing you take outside of your gen eds and electives are the restoration courses, okay? So what does that mean? I know I want to work in a shop. I know that I want to work hands-on. That's probably the area that I want to fall into, okay? We don't necessarily advise every student into that. If the student has an idea of what they want to do, we might try to advise them into one of our other tracks, okay? So the other tracks that we have are restoration management, which our board and some of those folks think that's one of the better career tracks to advise yourself into, because maybe I want to manage a shop, or maybe I want to run my own business, okay? So you're going to get those hands-on courses, and then you get what amounts to a little bit more than a minor in business, and it's courses that are geared towards management of a business or small business. So it's a little bit more than a minor in business to give you an idea of, someday if I'm running this place, what do I need to look at? You know, what do I need to keep my eyes for outside of what's happening on the shop floor? And learn a little bit about billable hours and things like that. We have a communications track, so restoration communication, which is great for students who want to write or do mass media or web work or anything like that. So you're taking what amounts to a little more than a minor in communications courses. Automotive history or historical documentation, that's history courses and research courses to go along with your restoration courses. That's an area of the industry that's kind of ever growing and will always need people, whether it's curating somebody's library, automotive library, like we have one student doing, to one of our graduates. You've heard of the Registrar of Historical Places, or so a few years ago they started one specifically for the last one that we have. It's probably our smallest one, but some students it's a nice niche for them, is restoration design. So some of you guys might watch automotive shows on TV or something like that, and you see somebody designs a build before the shop goes out and builds it, right? Maybe I need to paint this car on my iPad 10 different times to figure out what color I actually want it to be. So there are people out there who work in restoration design who do that, and they're taking things like graphics courses, web courses, things like that here at McPherson to go along with the hands-on that lets them relate and understand that a little bit better.
It's going to look hideous for a minute, But doing sheet metal makes you a visionary, and so you don't freak out, because you know in the end it'll be okay. So you can see how I've made this bit of the metal longer. I can always just try to push it back to get it a little bit closer to the finished shape, and then I've got to deal with these wrinkles. And what I'm going to do with these is hit them against a piece of wood. And if I can trap that metal in a wrinkle, I can actually force it into itself and make it shorter and thicker. We call that shrinking. And so I'm making this part longer and I'm making this part shorter. And between those two techniques, I'm going to get a lot closer to the panel that I want. You know, that's actually not bad. I try to feel for where it's rubbing, and that's telling me, I see some little bruises here. That's telling me I need to smack that. By smacking it, I create a little hollow in the metal so it can drape better over the panel. So I just look where it's hitting there. I'm going to take this is a shot bag. The Italians like sandbags. And then I'm going to hit that with my hammer. I find it very helpful in sheet metal to imagine the hologram of the finished piece superimposed over the ugly piece of metal that you're bashing on, and it helps guide you on the true path to the finished piece. So I'm looking at it the whole time going, you know, how does this not correspond with the hologram of my finished piece? And then that's where I hit it with a hammer. And luckily your skills at envisioning the hologram will always be getting better. This particular discipline is a lot like playing an instrument, where time spent doing it in practice, you'll always be getting better. Like your ear in music, you will always be getting better. Now, it's bumpy, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get $40 million for this piece of metal yet. And so the way the Italians would make this smooth, they would hammer it against a clean piece of steel, and you could either hammer from the back side or you could hammer from the outside. And then if you used a big tool with a large surface like that, that's not going to leave hammer marks as much. And so I'm going to try this one out. Wheels now because they were made popular in England. And it's kind of like a rolling pin. And the wheel on the bottom, these will have varying degrees of curvature on it. And then the top wheel is flat. And as I roll across there, it's just going to be making the metal more and more smooth. If I push down really hard and squeeze it tighter, that's going to thin the metal and make it longer and increase the lump that I have in the middle. Before anybody knew exactly how to do it, this is how they used it. They took lumpy pieces of aluminum that they bashed in a sandbag. They straightened out the lumps in the wheeling machine. But then as they did more wheeling, they realized, wow, we can actually do the shaping directly on this tool and skip the lump phase. And so that became part of the metal shaper's repertoire, to do the shaping on the piece or in the tool itself. If you know what a Shelby Cobra is, those were all made on this tool in England, sent to Shelby American to have their 289s and later 427s and all those improvements. You can see why this would become really popular for people who are hand making cars, because it leaves just this delicious finish that it's hard not to lick it, I gotta say. Sometimes I do. If no one was here to catch it on film, I would. But sort of crudest way to do it. In Italy after the war, a lot of the industrial centers where they had been building cars, like Turin, were leveled by Allied bombing because they were on the wrong side during World War II. And, so much of their tooling and so forth had been destroyed, and yet they just made do with passion for cars, and they became sort of the center of, well, what is a cool car supposed to look like? And so car makers all over the world went to the Italians to get solutions. And so some of the most famous cars all over the world were actually designed or built by Italians. So I bent that, and oh no, my panel's all flat. Am I going to get fired from sheet metal? I hope not, because it's really fun. What has happened here, this was a flat piece of metal that was really happy up in this plane. And if you think about that fender as a radius, I took that metal that was up in this radius and I've now forced it down by about 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch into a tighter radius. So what needs to happen is, this is actually shorter. I need that metal to get shorter and thicker in that dimension. And if I do that, I can put that curve back in, and then hopefully I won't get fired. There are lots of ways I can put that in. I'm going to use this little tool right here. It's got a set of jaws mounted on 2 ramps, and as you actuate the handle, it grabs the metal and pushes it together like that. I like to add sound effects. I believe it helps. Definitely makes it more fun. Oh no, you could be doing Excel spreadsheets. I used to have a real job too, but I'm so glad I started doing this for money. It's so much fun. It's just really satisfying to take an old car that is rusty and a disaster and make it slightly better than new. You can see I got the curve back, so I made that shorter and thicker. It's not bad.
Welcome to our machine lab. This is where we create parts. Let's say you're working on a car. We have a Willis Knight over there, 1917. Let's say you're working on a Willis Knight. You can't go into a catalog. So we're working with vertical, horizontal milling machines, CNC cutters, 3D printers, working with CAD programs, lathe to create parts. The first project you guys will do as students is actually painting test patterns. We go through every layer, your pattern will be identical. Every layer we learn the proper ways to prime, the stages of primer, the proper ways to sand, and then the different types of coat, whether it be a clear coat, a base coat, or a single stage paint job. As you progress, you actually work on the pedal cars you see around the shop right here. Those pedal cars are great because they encompass what a full car will work with, or what it will be working on in a full car in a smaller package, you waste less material, and believe it or not, it is somewhat harder to paint those cars and get them perfect because the curves and the intricacies are much tighter than a full-size car. Chassis and drivetrain lab. This is obviously our chassis area is where we're going to be working on suspension, steering, brakes, tires, and wheels. So we have a couple different projects. We have our Ford station wagon that was actually donated by Tom Connor, Haggerty, and our Barn Finders, which you may have seen. You on YouTube and watch their episode when they donated this to us. We also have a Formula Ford race car, which is a lot of fun. What student doesn't love fast cars? We have a 71 RS Camaro. This car was actually scored. We're working with the most vintage of materials like horsehair and the most modern like memory foams and microfibers. Model T Speedster that was completely hand-built by students actually has an overhead valve Chevy head on it that will push out a couple more ponies, and we're expected to go about 60 miles per hour in that car when factory is at 44. So we're excited about that. Completely hand-built rear tail section. Figure out what's going on. One of the challenges with this car is 1949, right after World War II. So the technologies and your materials were very scarce. You have a lot of post and pre-war technologies. So you can see and it's 19. Okay, welcome to our engines lab. We're obviously working on tons and tons of engines, Porsches, Cadillacs, engines, a little bit of everything. If you guys do a little pirouette, you'll actually notice on the ground in the corner, that's our Ferrari engine that we just got donated. We're going to be jumping into that. Involved in that, whether it be in the chassis, in the body, in the dash, in the, you know, frame rails, believe it or not. So there's wood in tons and tons of cars. I promise you, the Camaro is not a wood car. That is a professional car in service. So I promise you, there's no wood in that. But otherwise, we are learning here how to hand shape wood. We are learning the properties of wood, how it works, how it moves, because it is a constantly moving object.
Well, that concludes this campus visit here at McPherson College. Gotta say, pretty impressed with the whole setup, all of the facilities, and just the uniqueness of what we've got going on here in my backyard in McPherson, Kansas. A 4-year program, bachelor's degree for automotive restoration. Hope you enjoyed the experience I shared and all the stories from the staff and faculty. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and check out some of my other tours I've done. I guess it would be over in this area. So go ahead and check out another one of these videos. Like, comment, share, subscribe. That's going to do it for this episode. Until next time, peace out.